Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to take a look at some of the myriad of melee weapons available in Dark Heresy. Even though Warhammer takes place in a far future sci-fi universe, melee combat still takes front and center in a lot of combat both in lore and in Dark Heresy. For Dark Heresy in particular, melee weapons are based on your weapon skill characteristic for attacks. However, unlike ranged weapons, there also is a secondary characteristic which they use, which is your strength bonus increases all damage you do with melee weapons, meaning that it's very easy even for a starting character to get +3 or +4 damage for every single one of their melee swings. In addition, being engaged in melee shuts down any non-pistol ranged weapons, which makes this an easy way to counter enemy ranged combatants. And on top of that, if you're in melee with an enemy, it makes it harder to shoot into you, since whoever is firing at you will have a chance to hit their ally instead of their intended target. Meaning that even though the ranged weapons in Dark Heresy are quite useful and quite powerful, there is still a significant role that melee weapons can play, and it makes them incredibly useful to have in the world of Dark Heresy. In Dark Heresy, there are 3 different categories of melee weapons, which most melee-focused characters will end up using: low-tech, chain, and power weapons. Low-tech melee weapons are, as you might expect, any melee weapon that you might reasonably find on a feudal world. These are often very easy to acquire, and many different characters in Dark Heresy have the option to start out with one, as well as training in low-tech weapons. Low-tech weapons include things like staves, swords, warhammers, whips, etc. And while they're pretty good for a starting character, as you advance your character and grow more proficient in your skills, oftentimes you'll want to move into a higher tech melee weapon, which are often just strictly better versions of these lower tech ones. The next category is chain weapons, one of the more iconic weapon types of 40k. These all share the property of sharing, meaning that when you would roll for damage for any of these weapons, you roll twice and take the better result, not only making all of them more consistent, but also just flatly increasing the average damage that you do with these weapons. While it's less common than low tech, there are still a few different backgrounds that start with chain weapon training, meaning that if you really want to go all in on having a melee focused character, it's pretty easy to start with one of these weapons straight from character creation, and seeing as most chain weapons are relatively common, it's also not too difficult to pick up a backup or switch to a different kind of chain weapon if you want to mix it up. Finally, the third common melee weapon group is going to be power weapons. These are significantly harder to acquire than even of chain and low-tech weapons. However, they make up for that with increased damage, penetration, and the traits that they acquire. Every power weapon has a power field trait, and that means that if you parry a melee weapon with your power weapon, you have a pretty high chance to destroy the opposing melee weapon, assuming it is not itself a power weapon or has some other ability to prevent it from being destroyed. My personal favorite melee weapon is also of the power weapon variety. That would be the Ordo Mountain's Power Glaive. Not only does it have a 3-meter reach instead of standard 1 meter, deals 1d10 plus 8 damage, has the normal power field trait, but is also balanced, meaning it's easier to pair with it, proven, meaning that its damage will never roll below 4, and sanctified, meaning that it will deal additional damage to demons and creatures of war. It is extremely rare to make up for it, but it is, if you can get your hands on it, I think a very worthwhile weapon to acquire. There are, of course, other melee weapon types, shock weapons, which are a favorite of the Adeptus Arbites, force weapons for those with more of a psychic lead, and of course the many Xenos weapons that you may or may not encounter during your travels. However, those are usually slightly rare or slightly more difficult to use than these main three categories, and so if you have the opportunity to pick one up, you should always consider it, but they aren't necessarily something that I would recommend aiming towards trying to acquire from character creation. Next, I want to go through the talents available to an early character to improve their abilities, starting with the Tier 1 talent, Blind Fighting, requiring a perception score of 30. This removes all penalties for fighting in melee that you would normally get from obscured vision, whether because you're in a smoke cloud or because it's the pitch dark of night. Next up are the Tier 2 talents, starting with Combat Master, requiring a weapon skill of 30. This removes the bonuses an opponent may get for ganging up on you. Usually if you outnumber someone in melee, you'll get a plus 10 or plus 20 to your weapon skill, depending on how badly you outnumber them. This, however, removes that bonus, meaning that no matter how many foes you may be facing, you'll at least not be giving them any additional bonuses on top of that. Next is counterattack, acquiring a weapon skill of 40. This just lets you make a standard attack after successfully parrying an opponent's attack. You do take a minus 20 to your weapon skill, but it's an extra free attack, which are pretty difficult to come across in Dark Heresy. After that, we have Devastating Assault, requiring a weapon skill of 35. This lets you perform 2 all-out attacks per turn, assuming that the first one hits. An all-out attack is an attack that you make with a plus 30 bonus instead of the normal plus 10 from standard attack. However, in return, you aren't allowed to parry for that battle round. Next, you have Killing Strike, requiring a weapon skill of 50. This allows you to spend a fate point at the start of your turn to make it so none of your melee attacks can be avoided with dodge or parry skills of your opponent, allowing you to much more effectively pin down any highly evasive creature you may be fighting. Next is Swift Attack, which requires a weapon skill of 30 and allows you to make the Swift Attack action. This is similar to a normal attack, except for every 2 additional degrees of success you score on the attack, you get to hit 1 extra time. Next up is Whirlwind of Death, requiring a weapon skill of 40. This just lets you make a standard attack against every single enemy that you are engaged with. And lastly, we have One-on-One from the Enemies Beyond book. This requires a weapon skill of 40, and when fighting a single enemy, you score extra degrees of success on any successful weapon skill tests. While this doesn't necessarily directly increase the damage you deal, it does interact with other talents and features that you may have, such as Swift Attack, which will increase the total damage that you can deal with your attacks. Then finally we have the Tier 3 talents, starting with Assassin Strike, which requires training in acrobatics and an agility of 40. This allows you, after making a melee attack and a successful acrobatics check, to move at half of your normal move speed for free. This also ignores the normal type of opportunity that opponents would get from you moving out of their range, allowing you to run in, strike an opponent, and fade back out, forcing them to either focus on a different target or waste actions chasing after you. Still, we have Blade Master, requiring a weapon skill of 30 and for you to be trained in a type of melee weapon. This allows you once per round to reroll a missed attack with a bladed weapon. Obviously, this applies to swords, but will apply to any bladed weapon, meaning all chain weapons qualify, axes qualify, blades qualify, etc. Next up is Crushing Blow. Requiring a weapon skill of 40, this just adds half your weapon skill bonus to all the damage you inflict with attacks. This combined with the normal strength bonus you get for all your melee damage means that melee characters easily deal the most damage of anyone in the game. Finally, Lightning Attack, an upgrade on the previous Swift Attack. Now you're allowed to take the Lightning Attack action, which deals extra hits based on every degree of success versus the every 2 that Swift Attack does. Obviously, there are quite a few talents available for different types of melee fighting. However, unlike ranged talents, where for the most part you could pretty easily get all the aptitudes you needed to qualify for all the ranged talents, it is actually impossible to get enough aptitudes in the correct place to qualify for every single melee talent. What this means is that not only due to the number of talents, but also because of this aptitude restriction, melee characters, much more than ranged characters, have to choose a specific focus of what kind of melee combat they want to do. Whether they want to be more offensive or defensive, attempt to assassinate single targets, or wade into the fray surrounded by enemies and try to cut them all down. So my next few videos are probably going to cover a few different melee archetypes which I personally find interesting, so I hope you'll stick around for those when they come out. I also hope that you enjoyed watching this video, and most importantly, I hope you have a lovely day.